who's in the running for that was Eric Bieniemy. So I saw the news on Saturday. A lot of people were confused and they were like, wait, why did Eric Bieniemy leave to be a new offensive coordinator? Well, I looked into it, and if you click on the article and read it, I was like, oh, Eric Bieniemy is giving play calling decision making, and he's going to have full control over the offense, and it'll be more like a co-head coaching situation where he's going to take the reins away from Ron Rivera. So Ron Rivera is basically giving up some of his power to Eric Bieniemy, and he was going for like kind of a trial head coaching opportunity to see how he would run his own offense away from Andy Reid, because people are very skeptical about Eric Bieniemy because of you've seen him, Patrick Mahomes, get into heated arguments during games. They're like, he's too much of a tough guy for what he's accomplished in the league. And then they're like, is there it's all Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and how much of this is Eric Bieniemy? So some people are worried that he could be the Matt Patricia of offensive coordinators. That's a very harsh criticism, but it has been said before. Eric Bieniemy goes to Washington, and now him and Ron Rivera are going to be kind of co-running that team, where Eric Bieniemy has all the decision-making on the offense. I think this is a very risky move for Washington, but I feel like it is a very Washington move where you put two big personalities in Ron Rivera, Eric Bieniemy. If someone has something to say, they'll go up in there and get in your face. And then Eric Bieniemy, we've never seen him as a play caller before on offense. So I'm curious to see how that works out in Washington, but I'm rooting for it to succeed.
You want it to succeed? I think it's going to, I honestly think it's kind of, for Eric Bieniemy, it's a make or break move for him, because obviously he could have just stayed in Kansas City, played with Patrick Mahomes and had all these guys around him, Andy Reid, Travis Kelce, you name it. But I also feel like it was almost kind of hindering him in a way, because you have the best quarterback, some would say top 5 of all time, so it's like you have him. So how much of it is him and how much of it is you? Now he has an opportunity with someone like Sam Howell, who looked pretty good at the end of the season, but we didn't see enough of him to really dictate whether or not that's true or not.
Is it confirmed he's starting?
Yeah, that's kind of, they're going to be rocking him. But he does have a nice little offensive arsenal. They have Terry McLaurin. Curtis Samuel's pretty nice. They have Brian Robinson. He was pretty good towards the end of the season. And if Ron Rivera, who's a defensive-minded head coach, if he's focusing solely on the defense, they have some nice players on defense. Although I don't necessarily know if Bieniemy made the right decision, I do think that this is going to pay off. I do think that I look at this division, we have the Eagles, who, although I do think that they deserved all of their success that they had this season, definitely a little bit of luck that played into it. I think they take a slight step back next year. You have the Cowboys, who are a regular season team always. You have the Giants, where we'll get to this in a second, but like Daniel Jones is asking for $45 million. That's insane. So you have a team that was pretty close to making the playoffs last year if they make the right moves in the offseason. If Bieniemy can be all he said he is and all we think he can be, I think that this is going to be a successful move. And Sam Howell stock, soaring.
Yeah, and he's definitely someone where you needed to take some power away from Ron Rivera and justify keeping him on your head coaching staff. And then if your solution is to kind of bring in Eric Bieniemy, say, all right, you have full control of the offense, you're making the decisions as far as starters, calling the plays. My only question is, how is it going to work? Who's going to have the final decision when it's going to come to go for it on 4th down or a key situation like that, when it's between going for it or taking a field goal or a touchdown? Interested to see how that dynamic plays out, because I feel like that's somewhere where a lot of friction could start. And then the way that it's worded is basically they're saying Eric Bieniemy has full control of the offense, because if he messes up and it looks bad, that Ron Rivera can throw him under the bus, secure his job, and then it'll be like, oh, looks like Eric Bieniemy's terrible without Andy Reid. So he's definitely taking a risk, because I don't love the Washington quarterback situation. I feel like Sam Howell can be really good, but he's definitely a very raw talent. But
yeah,
I'm at the point where until I see it, not going to really be able to make a judgment on how good Bieniemy is going to be or not. But as far as a business move, I like where his head's at, where he's like, okay, if I'm not going to get a head coaching opportunity while I'm with Kansas City because of the overarching shadow of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, and then we have Kelce, all these players on offense, I'm gonna go out there and make my own name. So I respect this move, and I felt like he did need to make a lateral move to make that next jump to be a head coach because I feel like if the offense is really good, but Ron Rivera is still making some errors, they could be like, okay, now we fire Ron Rivera and then make you the head coach, or you're going to be the next big head coach in the NFL after you turn around the Commanders' offense and seemingly solve all their problems. But this is going to be a team that needs to run heavy. I feel like, especially with a young quarterback, not something that the Chiefs love to do. So that's another
Yeah.
area where I'm a little bit concerned about the fit.
Yeah, and I think Bieniemy, going back to your point about making that lateral move, it's like he had been with them for the last several years and he hadn't had any coaching opportunities. Had a couple of interviews, but they didn't go anywhere. So for him, he's kind of proving it himself. Like I said, it could crash and burn. I wouldn't be surprised. The quarterback situation is interesting. Definitely going to be a run heavy team. Part of me feels like the reason why they weren't a run heavy team is because they didn't have the talent. That Edwards-Helaire has definitely been a whip for the Chiefs this year. When they did have a running game with Pacheco and McKissick, it's like then McKinnon. I mean, definitely a lot more of a run heavy team.
Yeah.
So I do think he'll be successful. I'm gonna say it's gonna be like I'm gonna put myself at like 70-30. It's a success.